Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Insight Retreat Center. I myself just moved in approximately a month ago. We had a very nice, intensive 2-week retreat. We are for our midweek retreat. So welcome, everybody. If you haven't been here before, this is just a spectacular piece of land. I just like to give respect to the Awaswas speaking Yuki tribe, or the original, I don't want to say owners of this land, original habitats of this land. Right, and so let's take a little walk and see the trails. This is something I love to do during walking meditation, is go outside and kind of walk at my own pace and really scan around. Okay. Kitty guarding.
Whisker or stripes. Just to give you a little, there's stripes protecting IRC. And this is Heather, resident volunteer on camera. Welcome, everyone.
This is one of my favorite places to come during walking meditation. I hope it's not too dark and you can see it, but just come there and get so enveloped by the redwoods, and it's just so calming and peaceful right here. And just look up at this little nest, and this one kind of factoid I learned about redwoods is this: they make this kind of family cluster, and the grandmother would be in the middle, and if you cut the grandmother down, the children and grandchildren will continue to feed that stump, and just to send love. And they just create such an enormous community, and actually they get involved with the microbes and fungi that surround them too. And it's so interesting to learn more about where you live and how you breathe, and where does this all come from. I feel like I was raised very separate from it. So the more I learn, the more kind of enveloped I feel on this planet. So if you've never been here before, there's just all these lovely trails you can walk on during walking meditation. And there's such a nice kind of quietude, and there's these lovely benches where you can just kind of sit. And I'm sure lots of people enjoy sitting meditation outside as well. Sometimes the flies kind of disrupt me when I'm doing it, so I usually sit in the meditation hall. Up here is outside of our meditation hall and our walking hall. So you can come outside from the meditation hall and just walk down to these trails here. And if you stand out here, there's just such an enormous, gorgeous forest that is present here, and just feels so kind of like all encompassing. And that recently we just had these fires where a lot of redwoods burned down, and so curious to see what will happen there. And after there's a fire, actually, as I was talking about with the fungi that live with the redwoods or any forest, they kind of go into panic mode and they'll send out all of their spores. So it's the best time if you're a mushroom hunter. I don't trust myself that much, but if you're a mushroom hunter, it's actually the best time to go mushroom hunting because there'll be mushrooms everywhere. So that's kind of nice, thinking about the regeneration of life, that there's never any like complete loss. It's kind of this circle that's created. I hope we have time to come see my favorite bench to sit at. So this is my favorite little nook right here. There's this great maple tree. Wonderful Buddha.
Just get a little.
Oh,
Lay this bench. This is Heather now, in loving memory of Victor Medina. Yeah, and this Buddha. Say hi to our forest Buddha here.
I love sitting out here. I love just having a little picnic out here and just really looking around and looking at the sky. It was unfortunate that first week of the 2-week retreat, we couldn't go outside. And gosh, that I just having that knowledge, like you can't go outside, felt so kind of like overwhelming for a while there. But luckily, we made it out. So I'm really hoping that you have somewhere near you when you're meditating that you can have a nice peaceful walk during walking meditation. Sometimes walking inside can get a little redundant, but it's totally up to you how you feel like approaching it, for sure. We can walk more of the trails if we have time. Oh, sorry. I guess we're out of time. So warm welcome to Kim Allen. She will be leading this little mini retreat. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our welcome crew. It's always so lovely to see an aspect of IRC. So why don't we go ahead and begin with our meditation to begin this mini retreat. And maybe we can just flow in naturally from those beautiful trails that we just saw that Megan and Heather introduced us to. So just allowing yourself to close your eyes, maybe taking a long, slow, deep breath. And on the exhale, settling into your meditation posture, whether you're sitting or lying down, maybe even some of you are standing. And just really feeling the connection to the place where you're sitting or standing or lying, the support that it's giving to your body. It's fine to really feel connected exactly where you are. Or if you want, you can kind of imagine yourself sitting in that redwood grove or on one of the benches. Just having a sense that you're in a peaceful place, contemplative place, bringing that idea into how you're sitting this morning. Beginning to bring some ease into the mind and body. So perhaps softening the muscles of the face, the expression on the face, around the forehead, the eyes, the jaw, softening, relaxing. Softening the eyes and the eye sockets. Down into the shoulders. Letting those soften and relax. The arms, the hands. Down into the chest area, the whole torso. Be feeling the breath on the next breath. Really fill into the upper body area. Increasing your deep connection into the chest, the belly. Softening the diaphragm, the belly muscles. All the way down into the hip joints. Connecting a little more deeply into the seat. And then letting go of any bracing in the legs. Just resting with an overall sense of the body. And then connecting with the sensations of breathing, just as an initial way to settle the mind into the present moment. Feeling the sensations of the breathing, not the idea, in breath or out breath, but really the simple elemental sensations. The touch of the air on the nostrils or the upper lip, that feeling of coolness as it enters the nasal passages. Feeling sense of motion or tingling as it moves down the throat, air passages. Maybe you can feel it into the chest or even the belly. There's a shift of clothing against the skin. And on the in-breath, a sense of expansion and increasing tension as the air comes in. And then that will naturally end at some point, and the out-breath will begin. There's a different kind of sensation on the out-breath. Relaxation or contraction. Maybe warmth in the nasal passages. actually quite a kaleidoscope of sensations. And just resting, watching the breath come in, go out, the way a child might watch waves on the beach. You may begin to notice that whether the in-breath is generally longer or shorter right now, whether the out-breath is generally longer or shorter right now, just to notice. And as the breath enters the body, whether long or short, having the idea of just letting it come in with no resistance and also no grabbing at it, letting it flow in totally naturally, spreading through the body as it does. And on the out breath, letting it flow completely out, no holding on to it, no pushing. So that there's a sense of coming into harmony with the air coming in, going out, allowing ease in the body. And bringing into awareness also the mind. We know the breath in the body through the mind. The mind itself can be a little tight or a little buzzy or distracted or clingy. Just noticing generally, how is the mind? Can we soften the mind into being receptive to the breath and the sensations of the body? Bringing it too into harmony with what's happening in the present moment. If there are persistent thoughts, that's very normal. The mind thinks. So rather than opposing these or fighting them or trying to push them away, we can gently say, not now. Promising that it will return at a later time, and we will. We can pick those thoughts up later. For now, enjoying the simple presence of mindfulness. Whatever degree of ease is available. It's actually quite fine at the beginning of a meditation to emphasize ease or relaxation, to move in ways that make the mind more comfortable. So breathing a little more deeply or deliberately relaxing on the out breath. And feeling the simple internal ease that comes from that. Meditation is not only passive observation, but more of a harmonizing. One way that we can stay engaged with meditation is to have a stance of skillful inquiry in the mind. At a very basic level, this is to have some curiosity and interest in our experience. What is this? This life, this mind, this body. There's a way of just gently inclining the mind toward that kind of curiosity. Kind interest, like we would show for a good friend. Can be very gentle. Just an inclining of the mind toward caring about this experience. Sensing it. Touching it. Each breath coming in, going out. How it feels in the body. when we are curious about our experience and engage with it with that stance in the mind, it can bring a subtle kind of joy. Of course, what you may be experiencing may not be completely pleasant, but this kind of joy is the joy of connection to our own experience, the simple joy of being present, of being engaged with the mind and the body. That kind of joy happens whether the experience is pleasant or unpleasant. It's very helpful in practice to begin to be able to sense this kind of subtle joy of being present. And in the last few minutes of this meditation, perhaps again scanning through the body with the inquiry, how is it now? Has anything shifted? Can there again be some ease in the breath, the body, the mind receiving that? Finding harmony is a dynamic process. Things keep changing. So we keep up, keep adjusting. Feeling the joy of connection. So welcome to the IRC mini retreat this morning. If you've just joined recently, schedule of what we'll be doing is to, just after I'm finished talking, we'll have a period of walking meditation until, in my time zone, 10:50. That's about 20 minutes from now. And then we'll come back for another sit from 10:50 until 11:30 or half past the hour. And that one will be lightly guided, but a little more silent than this one we just had. And then I'll give a mini Dharma talk from 11:30 to about 11:45 or so. And there will be a chance after that for Q&A and some closing. And then there's community time at noon or the top of the hour, wherever you are, that will be hosted again by the IRC folks so that you can connect with the other people who are on this mini retreat today. So for now, we're going to be doing some walking for the next 20 minutes. And if you're not familiar with walking meditation, it's a fairly simple way to just stay engaged with the meditative process, but up in the walking posture, a little bit more maybe integrated with our regular way of being. So the idea is to walk back and forth in a meditative way. Generally, we would choose something 10 to 20 paces long. You could go outside if you wanted, and just focus on the sensations in the feet and the legs as you walk back and forth mindfully. And if the mind wanders away, then you just bring it back when you notice that to the physical sensations again. And you walk at the pace where you can stay mindful. So it's fine to walk almost at a normal pace, or if that's a little agitating for a mind that's settled, you can walk a little slower. If you walk too slow, you'll start thinking again. So walk at the pace that matches how your mind is now. You can stay mindful. And there will be a bell rung about 3 minutes before we come back. So if you happen to be near the computer, you'll hear that and you'll know to come and sit down again at 10:50 or 10 minutes before the hour where you are. And I'll see you then. Enjoy your walking. So, welcome back. Coming back now from the walking meditation and finding your sitting posture again. Maybe trying to make it kind of a smooth transition so you carry some of the energy that naturally comes from walking back into the sitting. Sometimes we think of sitting as just being very, very still and tranquil. But interestingly, that kind of tranquility, meditative tranquility and concentration, are actually supported by having energy in the body and mind. They're not at all a dull state. So maybe taking a long, slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, allowing the body to settle into its meditation posture. Go ahead and close the eyes if that's comfortable for you. Just reconnecting with the sitting posture, or maybe some of you are standing or lying down. The sense of being still. Often in sitting, we connect with the experience of energy in the spine. So if you are upright, a literal uprightness of the body. And then the other parts of the body can relax around that relaxed but energetic spine. Perhaps connecting again with the sensations of breathing, the very simple, elemental feelings of temperature, motion, tautness, and relaxation that alternate in the natural flow of the breath. And remembering also our mental stance of curiosity and interest, care for our experience. What is this now? How is this now? Harmonizing once again with how things are now, maybe different than before. How could I sit now so that the breath can just come in, flow out, with no resistance from me to that happening? How could I be at ease with how my mind and heart are now? Whether there's concerns or busyness, tiredness, or happiness, excitement. Harmonizing somehow with that so that we can stay present with that. And if there's beginning to be a sense of tranquility or settledness, contentment, letting that spread throughout the body with each breath, letting it flow into the tissues. letting it spread out into the mind. Finding the part of the mind that can rest, even if it's just a small part. As the mind settles further into meditation, you may have a sense of where that feeling of peace or ease, settledness is in the body and mind right now. It's fine to begin letting go of what isn't about that. Letting go and allowing the mind to settle upon itself. To have a sense of simple gladness to be present. A sense of tranquility. Born of our actions this morning of settling in with the sitting and the walking. Letting go into a more unified experience. As we continue to sit, again, gently checking in the harmonization of the body, the mind, the heart. Bringing in that sense of care for our experience. And noticing that experience is continually changing. Tuning in to the flow, the process that is the body, the mind. It may feel largely smooth and stable with some fluctuations, or it may be rapidly changing. We can reorient attention towards the changing element of experience, being at ease with that. This is life, dynamic. Letting go of any ways that we're interfering with that natural flow. And when the mind gets into a state, as it sometimes can, of feeling both the tremendous change of the body and the mind, never the same moment to moment, and feeling the ease that comes from just resting with that. So change and rest at the same time. It can learn from that experience something about how to live in the Dharma in our life. So there's an encounter described in the written discourses of the suttas where a deva, a god, comes to talk with the Buddha. And the deva says, "How, dear sir, did you cross the flood?" And that's a metaphor for reaching freedom. How did you reach freedom? And the Buddha says, "By not halting, friend, and by not straining, I crossed the flood." And the deva isn't quite sure he gets it. So he says, but how is it that by not halting and by not straining, you were able to cross the flood? And the Buddha explains, when I came to a standstill, then I sank. But when I struggled, then I got swept away. It is in this way that by not halting and by not straining, I was able to cross the flood. So this passage points to what might be called our stance in practice, if you will. We can't just stand still. Perhaps wanting to hold on to how things are, or maybe just sort of passively hoping that awakening will somehow happen. But on the other hand, we can't push for it, make it happen, maybe trying to control or direct our path in certain ways. We'll just get pushed around if we do that. And it doesn't actually work. It's like running up the down escalator somehow. So there's a need for some kind of middle way between these. By not halting and by not straining, I was able to cross the flood. So there is a fair amount of space in this middle area. But today I wanted to focus on one possibility of how to navigate between those. And that is having a stance of inquiry or investigation or questioning, using that as a way of not being passive, but also not trying to control. And this question, this idea of questioning or inquiry, is relevant both on the cushion and off. It also has a way of unifying our experience on and off the cushion. So if you're feeling like that's an area where it could be better unified, this approach will tend to have that feeling. We'll tend to get the sense that our practice is similar, whether our eyes are closed or open, and whether we're silent or interacting with people. Sometimes there are literal questions in our practice, and these are important. Quite a few suttas in the teachings are about people who come to the Buddha with a question. They have something that they want to ask, and he then perceives their situation and answers in a way that is helpful for that person. And sometimes we can do that too, in the sense that we can go ask a teacher our questions. But we also have to learn how to answer some of our own questions, or how to handle our own questions. We can't always run off and ask. So it's useful to know something about questions. Not every question is useful for our path. Not every question that our mind comes up with is going to be helpful for us. There are a lot of distracting questions, particularly questions about myself. In fact, there's a sutta that enumerates a whole bunch of questions that the Buddha says are just not useful ways to pay attention to experience. And unfortunately, they sound kind of familiar when I look over them. So questions like, was I in the past? Was I not in the past? What was I in the past? How was I in the past? Having been what was I in the past? Shall I be in the future? Shall I not be? What shall I be? How shall I be? Having been what shall I be in the future? All these questions. How's it going to be? How was it? How was I? How many times have we asked, oh, maybe I should have been a little more open when I was talking to that person yesterday? How was I in the past? Or else we can be inwardly perplexed about the present, it says. Am I? Am I not? What am I? How am I? Where has this being come from? Where is it bound? So these types of questions do often appear in our mind, don't they? So there are also questions that are highly speculative, questions about the fate of the universe and that sort of thing. The Buddha also says these are probably not immediately relevant for our practice. And then there are also questions that are just kind of distracting, that come from restlessness, essentially, something the mind is buzzing about in the present moment. And there are some examples in the sutta of this. I have some quotes here where some bhikkhunis, nuns, are are encountering Mara, which is, you might think of Mara as the king of distraction. He has a number of names, but he's essentially that distracting voice in our mind. And there are a number of cases where he teases wise bhikkhunis and tries to get them to fall away from their meditation, but they're not fooled. So for example, there's one where Mara comes and says, there is no escape in the world. So what will you do with your seclusion? Enjoy the delights of sensual pleasure. Don't be remorseful later. This is a nun while she's meditating, has this thought. She thinks, where does that thought come from? And then she realizes, this is Mara trying to distract me from my meditation. So she replies to him, there is an escape in the world, which I have closely touched with wisdom. O evil one, kinsman of the negligent, you do not know that state. And Mara realizes that he's been found out and slinks away, according to the teaching. So there's a way we need to be wise about the questions that we're asking. Are they useful, or are they just wrapping ourselves up in ourselves or distracting us? So we could ask, what are the qualities of good questions? There are a number of characterizations. Maybe two we could say are that good questions are immediate and practical. They pertain to our situation. And the second is that they're onward leading. They lead us into a deeper understanding of our situation. They lead us into a deeper insight into the teachings. They lead us into actions that are wholesome and will help us on our path. These kinds of things. So questions that prompt us in those directions are useful. We may have spiritual questions in our practice that relate to awakening, compassion, wisdom, ethics. How can these be brought into our life? What will they look like for us? How do they pertain for us being able to live the Dharma in this world? Those are useful questions. They can be helpful. And the way that we engage with them, that's also important. So there are ways of holding these good questions and staying open to them that helps them unfold in our heart, in our mind, in our actions, in our being, help new possibilities emerge. So there are questions that close down or distract, and there are questions that open and help to grow, help to nourish. We don't always engage with our deeper, bigger questions. And one reason for that, you see a lot of people out there who are not engaging with their bigger, deeper questions. One reason is that it takes some openness to be able to hold a question like that. It takes some willingness to be with uncertainty, maybe something we would call faith. Also some patience, because those answers don't come so easily. And also some strength of attention to stay with a question like that. That's really a deep, powerful question until we start to see some possibilities emerging. So practice with mindfulness and with samadhi, with compassion, actually help us to be able to open to these deeper questions, which will then help build skills. It's a virtuous circle. It also seems that some of the inquiries that we have, as we start thinking about these deeper questions that we might have, we realize that not all of them are actual questions that we can speak or articulate in some way. Inquiry is bigger than having questions. It can be kind of a stance in and of itself that maybe doesn't have an explicit question. So on the cushion, we can engage with this by resting in an open and receptive state. Mindfulness teachers will often say that mindfulness is a receptive state. They'll say, try to open to your experience, have a kind attention, curiosity about what's going on. And that can help, because that kind of stance can help with our spiritual potential unfolding more. Sometimes the point of practice is not so clear. Why am I just watching all of my experience, being receptive to what's there and there and there? And it's always, on and on with this. But a lot of practice is kind of like taking data. We just sit there and let it come in, see what it is, put it in a file, and somehow, magically, the heart can start to make connections, see the patterns. And sometimes, now and then, it delivers to us an insight. Things assemble in a certain way. But it takes having this open, inquiring, patient stance to be able to have that happen. What is this? Or how is this? And just staying with that. sometimes our insights are a little surprising because we didn't know how our heart was assembling things. Rilke said this well in his letters to a young poet. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. So here he identifies a very important aspect of practice, which is to live our questions. And this is something that we can do off the cushion. We can use the very fabric of our life as material for our practice. If you're wondering about what compassion really feels like for you, how about going to volunteer in a soup kitchen or a hospital, maybe after shelter in place? But go do it. Go live it. See what that's like for you. Reading a book about compassion is not going to be the same thing, is it? The first silent residential retreat that I did was 9 days long, and I did it about maybe a year into my practice. And I knew I wanted to do it, but it was helpful for me to frame it as and to tell myself the story that I was going on this retreat in order to just see what it was like to meditate for 9 days. That was what I told myself. I'm just going to see what it's like. How else could I know? And it was helpful. It worked. It got me there at least. And of course, it was nothing like I could have ever imagined, but it was a great way to take it on. It was a great stance to have. What's it going to be like? Instead of, here are the 8 problems I need to solve in these 9 days. This is what I'm working on in my practice. I wasn't working on anything. I was seeing what it would be like to meditate for 9 days. It was a powerful experience. There's so many aspects of the path that we just have to live. Could be compassion, it could be retreat, but it could also just be acting differently than our usual habits, our usual ways of acting. It's so easy just to act out the same patterns of how we interact with people and how we do things, especially if you're living at home and kind of having the same thing every day, right? If you're not getting out too much these days. But why not try something different just to see what it's like? You're not changing your whole way of being. You're just going to see what it's like. So, for example, I had a friend who realized that a lot of his approach to life was about winning. And, he wasn't like a type A go executive type. He was a meditator, but still he had this inner idea that about, when he was in a discussion, he would try to get his point across and make sure that others agreed with him. He had sort of an idea of coming out on top in various ways. And when he realized this and saw this through his practice, he thought, maybe I should practice losing. So he took a period of time, I don't remember how long, and he deliberately lost as much as he could. So, for example, when he played games, he would lose. And when he was in discussions, he would concede points to other people, and he would not try to argue his points. And at first, it was really uncomfortable, of course, because it was different than the usual pattern. Everything in the system was screaming, no, we have to do it this way. This is the habit. This is what we do. This is what it feels like to be me. And he was saying, no, we're going to try this other thing. And so after a while of trying this other way, he began to notice that backing down or backing off, what he would have called losing before, sometimes was an opening for generosity, for kindness, things that weren't getting a chance to live in his previous way of being. And he started to gain some wisdom about where those good qualities could come forth and where he did need to be clear and make his point, and not just, always give up. So he discerned what is the skillful way to give up or give in or be flexible or let others have their choice that time. And that was a very important lesson. He gained wisdom. He wasn't stuck in that one way of being. So you could think about your own mental patterns and maybe trying to live the question of how it could be a little bit different, just to see what it's like. So we can't stand still in our practice, but neither can we make our changes faster than they're ready to be changed. As Rilke says, we have to be patient, and until we can change enough that the new understanding, the understanding of that question can come to us. So, like the Buddha, we will cross over the flood by not halting and by not straining, but just maintaining this open stance of inquiry and willingness to live our questions. So I hope that's of some interest and some help to you this morning. I'd like to give a chance for you to offer some questions in the chat. And I'm gonna go over here. And please understand that I can see the chat, but there's a little bit of a delay between when you write it and when I'm going to see it. So if doesn't seem like I'm responding right away, that's why, and I'll try to get to it when I see them. I do see one question that must have come in earlier, which is, could I read this thing from Rilke again? And I'd be happy to do that. That'll fill in our space while everybody else can type in something. So he says, be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. So there's some wisdom there and useful for us. I don't know that we always need to think that all of our questions will be solved some distant time in the future, because in reality, our questions are solved now. Whatever time they're solved, it's going to be now. So, we don't need to be so time bound, perhaps. Anything on your mind? We're talking about questions. You might have some questions. I can also say that another time that I was living a question was when I lived at IRC. I was one of the early resident volunteers there. And when I arrived, it was before the first retreat that ever happened there. So it was quite a thing. And it was, IRC was quite experimental and also generating some kind of a residential on-site community of people who were living to support the Dharma there was a new idea. We didn't know what that was going to look like. But I knew I wanted to see what that was like. So I was happy to be there for the first few years, helping to get it launched. And it was a time of deepening of my practice, of really just opening to what that could be and seeing how it moved through my being. So maybe you have some opportunities like that in your life also that you can try to live into, connect more deeply with the Dharma. Here's a question. I will read it. So it says, do you have any advice about how to take care of the heart that feels impacted by the suffering of others, but isn't clear how to respond? I'm thinking of larger societal problems. Yes, certainly. This is an amazing time that we're living in. And it can be hard to know how to respond. So I would point back to the heart, which was mentioned in the question, is that I may not know how to respond to what's going on, but the Dharma does. And there's a way in which the closer that I feel connected to the way the Dharma is showing itself to me, the clearer I can be about making a response that's coming from compassion and from wisdom, and therefore will be of genuine benefit, of really be helpful to the societal problems that we're feeling. And so it's hard to be specific about what that would look like for you, but I can say with absolute certainty that the Dharma that's alive in your heart through practice will be enough for you to take the next step that you need to do. We may not know how to be, the amazing spiritual leader that we want to be, or the eloquent speaker, or the person who puts together just the right program that can really support people. We may not be that yet, but if we hold in our heart the wish, I really feel the suffering of others and how it's impacting our society. How could I help? That can be an actual inquiry that we sit with in practice. And I have a lot of faith that at some point there's a composting process that goes on, and the parts of us that are getting in the way of being able to make that response will be seen and be seen through as not necessary to shaping our actions. So I also think we should be careful about having an idea ahead of time what we think it should look like. Like we could ask questions like, how could I become X? How can I become X? It may not be that X is what you need to become in order to be the most useful. So for some people, they're going to find expression through art. They're going to create artwork that really makes people stop and think and see differently about what's going on. Some people are going to be speakers. They're going to be out organizing, maybe giving speeches. Some are going to write. Some are even going to go on long retreat. Sometimes that's the best thing we can do. And a year from now, we're going to have a better idea. So I don't want to restrict what might be your response, but I'm sure that sitting with it in the heart, with this stance that we've talked about in the talk today, will be of benefit. See what else. So it looks like it is being recorded. That's good. Yeah, one of the amazing things about the Dharma is that it will simultaneously make us more sensitive and therefore more having a feeling that our heart is impacted by the societal problems. And it will make it more capable of responding, stronger, softer, more vulnerable in a way, and also stronger, more capable than if we didn't practice. Here's another question. Would I please comment on how to relate thinking outside of the box to the question forming? Oh, interesting. This is a great question because the way that the very questions that we can ask tend to come from our current understanding, right? We're in a box, if to use the framing of the used in the question. We're in some kind of box, our little world of how we see things, how we relate to things, our particular emotional responses and habits of thinking. And from that box, we're trying to ask a question that will get us out of the box. So it's not obvious, is it? How could I think in a way that was different than how I can think in order to ask the right question? But that's what's meant by questions that are onward leading. That's what that somewhat unusual word is meant to be. There's a funny way in which being a human being and having a mind and body, we're able somehow to ask questions that will require a different understanding. in order for us to really answer them. And so there's a way in which if we open the question and then live into it, we will move to a different spot. And only from that other spot can we actually see a different way of seeing. One thing I think of with this is at the Insight Meditation Society, which is a retreat center in Massachusetts. They're on a huge tract of land within a forest with trails out in the woods. You can go and walk there. It's really, really quite beautiful, all on retreat. But the trails are marked. They do have some signs, but they also have blazes on the trees. And so you're standing at the start of the red trail, and there's a red blaze on a tree, like it's just a spot, a red paint spot. And you look ahead, and you can see a red spot on a tree, 20 yards away. And so you walk up the trail, and you get to that tree, and only when you get to that tree can you see the next red blazed tree. And that's all you can see. So you go to that one. It feels like practice is like that, is that we ask, where's the next red blaze? And there it is. We can see the tree. And when we get to that next tree, will we have the different perspective that we need to see the next tree. And there's a way that we can unfold our practice in that way. So I don't think we need to sort of try to think outside the box. Instead, we need to try to point the mind in a direction that will open one of the sides of the box, something like that. I hope that helps. This is the idea of a well-posed question, so that it will be onward leading. Okay, well, I see that we are nearly at the end, so I want to thank everyone for coming and participating this morning, and I hope it has served your practice well. Maybe we could just take a moment to dedicate the merit of what we've done today, supported our own heart, supported those who were sitting with us, and just offer the merit of this practice so that other beings too can benefit, those immediately around us, those that we'll encounter through Zoom, through email, through phone calls today, and also farther out in ways that we can't even see. So may all beings be happy, may all beings be peaceful, and may all beings everywhere find freedom. May our questions take us forward so that we can address some of these societal issues and also free our hearts and those of others. So with that, I will pass it back over to the IRC team. This is now community time for you to connect with each other and continue. Practice continues on. So please stay for that if you'd like. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim. It was wonderful. Thank you for being with us. Just a couple announcements. The community time Zoom link is in the YouTube description, and the password is, as usual, community, all lowercase. And you will be able to find a donation link in the description as well. Some of you asked, and you will be able to dedicate a month towards teacher or a month towards IRC. Thank you very much, and we'll see you. If we don't see you at the community time, we'll see you next Wednesday with Andrea Fella. Thank you.